I wanted to talk about the top 3 stand locations that you could sit in for deer season, whether you're bow hunting, gun hunting, whatever it might be this year on a small parcel. And it becomes so critical on a small parcel because the size of the parcel does not encompass your mistakes. For example, you can have 1,000, 1,200, 2,000 acres. If you drive your ATV into a hunting plot and you spook all the deer away and you destroy 40 acres at a time with just one intrusion, you probably can still have a good herd and maybe experience a great hunt elsewhere on the property because it's such a large parcel that, again, the amount of acres encompasses your mistake or the projection of your mistake. If you spook out deer 300 yards this way, 300 yards this way, you still have a mile that way and a mile that way on the outside of that where deer haven't been on pressure. But unfortunately on a small parcel, you have to be very careful. So I like to focus on 3 stand locations that to me are all around stand locations, pretty low impact. So even if you have your property set up well, if you really want to dummy proof it and make it so that you're not spooking deer, because that's the #1 name of the game. Your lowest hole in the bucket of any property management, and especially when it becomes a smaller parcels, is how you hunt. Someone said the other day, yeah, if you create all this great habitat, anyone could have a good hunt. Well, unfortunately, the combination of good hunters and good habitat, what I find, equals less than 5% of all private landowners, and it might even equal less than 3%. And what I mean by that is you have great habitat and you also hunt it well. So if you don't hunt it well, great habitat is actually a hindrance to you because you attract more deer to the land, you hunt it poorly, and now you spook more deer because the land's attractive. You're better off if you're gonna hunt it poorly to actually not have any habitat improvements, because then you can at least shoot a buck that's wandering through that doesn't know any better, doesn't know that that hunting pressure has been applied. But when you have great habitat improvements and you overhunt it, you hunt it poorly, now you spook off those deer that you're attracting. So when it's a small parcel, you have to be very careful how you hunt on and off the property. And my #1 stand location, and I'm just saying #1 meaning it's the first one we're going to talk about because it's in order of how we're working around the property here, is a small hunting plot. And on that small hunting plot, we call it Leo's plot. It's great because we have other big food sources nearby. We don't have to choose to even go spook those those big food plots out. For example, in Wisconsin where we hunt, we have 3 food plots there. They total about 3 1/4 acres. We've never actually sat on one of those food plots to hunt because we'll spook deer when we go in and out. So we have to either hunt them from a distance with a gun, but when it comes to bow, we can't sit on those food plots because we'll spook out the property. Yet, those food plots represent the attraction on that parcel for deer to come in and out. So when we manage the attraction of those food plots, we don't spook out those deer. Then we can hunt off to the side on water holes, mock scrapes, or in the edge of bedding areas and expect great movement to those food sources or from them because we never spooked them out. In the case of a small hunting plot, you're just hunting a pass through like on Leo's. The deer are passing through. They're going to feed out in distant ag, distant food sources. Maybe on your property, you're in a public land setting, you have small food sources on the way to big food sources like a clear cut or a swamp edge where it meets hardwoods and you have lots of diversity. So you're hunting that small pass-through food source that allows you to hunt sometimes morning, but a lot of afternoon sits where deer are just passing through. They're not camped out there for hours at a time, past dark where you can't get out of your stand. People will say, I have my blind on a stand and deer feed till well after dark. How do I get out? You don't hunt that stand. You don't hunt that food plot in that location, because if you can't get in or out of your stand without spooking deer, it's not about some magical formula. I'm here. How do I get out? There's a magic way to do that. There's not. If you're spooking deer, you just can't hunt there. So when you have a little hunting plot that you can get in and out, has good cover, good brush getting in and out, your screen, you're blowing your scent away from the deer, then it becomes a great pass-through plot where you can hunt safely with low risk. And then this #2 stand I like to talk about is a water hole or a funnel connecting bedding areas. So instead of getting back on the bedding area, sometimes I'll take the risk of getting on the back side of a bedding area, but we have lots of stand locations in area we can hunt. If I wanted to narrow it down to 3 and I wanted to be safe, we wouldn't hunt the bedding area. Instead, we'd hunt between. We have bedding area out this point, we have bedding area out at the top of this draw, and then you go down across the draw and we have bedding area over there. So we're in the middle of these 3 bedding areas and it becomes a natural funnel and pinch point. We have crossings in the ravine. We have a bench that extends along this field to another bedding area, and then the point over here is all bedding area, and we're right on the edge of this point. So we're right in the middle of that wheelhouse, and in this case, because they're all dry bedding, then we have a great 300-gallon water hole here with the stand locations right behind Dylan. So it's a 25-yard shot for bow. It's not on bedding, that means it's just a pass through. And unlike that hunting plot where they might sit for a half hour, 45 minutes, they're only here for a half minute, and then they're cruising through and gone. So very safe in and out, but very high quality stand location, especially when the bedding areas are dry. It doesn't matter that there's water all the way down the bottom. In fact, there's springs that come out of the hill and they seep down through the creek about 250 feet in elevation below. There's water down there, but those bucks don't want to travel all the way down and all the way back up just to get some water. Instead, this is in a natural cruising area between bedding areas, between multiple bedding areas. It lines up with crossings across ravines. It's that typical pinch point and X of movement. You have big food that way, big food on the other side of the ravine. And so it's just a pass-through area that features an X of movement. We add a water hole to enhance that. As long as the bedding areas are dry, they're not coming from a swamp where there's water surrounding, then a water hole works, and in this case it works perfectly. So that's number 2 stand location, a little pass-through hunting area, nice water hole stand by bedding, or just a standalone by bedding areas. This would be a good spot without the water hole. It turns into a great spot with the water hole. And then finally on the other side, in between these 2 bedding areas, is a really nice bench. We have a crossing, and it represents a cruising bench where deer are just traveling side to side. They're not going all the way down the ravine. Maybe in your case, it's an open field they don't want to go to. You have a thick brushy edge between bedding areas. We've created bedding area out to the top of this hollow, bedding area off to another point on the other side, and we hunt in between. We call it the power line stand. We blow our scent back into the open field area, and we just get into the edge and watch that movement left and right. It's a great cruising stand for daylight cruising. It's well into the woods. We have switchgrass edging. It's thick. We have a great approach to get in and out. It's between food sources and all the bedding. Now we can blow our scent out into the switchgrass, out into the open field, and it's perfect for cruising, rut cruising. And so there we have it. We have a water hole stand in between bedding like this, dry bedding. And again, you wouldn't have to necessarily have the water hole here, but it's a cruising area between bedding. We have another one over there, has opposite winds. So this one, the wind's blowing that way. So wind blowing this way, the other stand on the other side is wind blowing that way, just typical cruising stand. And then we have the small food plot over there that allows us to hunt maybe a little bit of morning hunting if we feel safely about getting in and out without spooking deer. But it represents just a typical pass through for deer traveling from bedding to big feeding or back again. And so there you have it. Small food source, bedding area stand in between bedding areas, not on the bedding area, and then a cruising stand over there between bedding areas and really natural crossings. So that gives us those 3 top stand locations I like to have: food, water, and cruising. Maybe you can apply it to your small property this year. But again, on small properties, you can't afford to spook out the property. So even if you just narrow it down to a handful of stands that you can choose and hunt safely, hunting cruising, food, and in between bedding will give you that combination where you can hunt morning hours, afternoon hours, all day, like in a stand like this where it's in that X of movement. If you can apply those to your hunt this year, maybe even apply that, look for those on public land. Look for a cruising stand with funnels. Look for a small food source, maybe a white oak stand or a couple fruit trees on an old home site somewhere, maybe a diversity edge where upland meets lowland swamp and you have a lot of different types of herbaceous growth and vegetation, shrubs and trees. And then also this stand right here, we have a water hole. Maybe you have a crossing in a creek or something like that, a ditch where you can find naturally out on public land. But you get those 3 stands to happen between bedding, food, water, then you'll be set up whether you're on public or private land for hunting and having a low risk, great hunt this fall. And when I say that you can hunt this low risk, what does that allow you to do? You're not going all for broke in one stand location in the middle of your land or middle where you hunt, spooking all the deer out. Instead, you're hunting and you can hunt, take just little short jabs on the deer in the area safely. That allows you to live, to hunt another day, allows you to get the most out of your stand locations, hunt them more often, And ultimately, that mature buck in the area will make a mistake over 7, 8, 10 sits, 12 sits that you have during the course of a year, as opposed to you making the mistake, going out and blowing out the other 10 or 12 opportunities too early in the season. Make sure you hunt these 3 type of stands. Hunt them with low risk, low intrusion setup, and you'll have success this year and beyond for the rest of your hunting days. Now, I appreciate you guys watching the YouTube channel, but I don't know if everyone knows everything that we have to offer, whether it's on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, our website, or WHS Wildlife Blends, our seed company. Also, Instagram you can check out. I'm very active on Instagram, putting strategies on there, photos of what we do every day. Much more active there than Facebook. But our seed, web classes, books, clients, articles. I have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, everything whitetail strategy. Of course, we have hats on there, and then make sure to check us out on Instagram again. But lots of stuff to offer. We're always coming out with new things, and this isn't the end of it. We have more things coming soon. Make sure to check us out.